Good morning. Today we are here to see Murder in the Cathedral by T S Eliot. T S Eliot, who was born on 26th September 1888 at St. Louis, USA. His ancestors on the father's side had migrated to America in 1668 from East and in of the England. Here Thomas Stern Eliot enjoyed a long lifespan of more than 75 years, and his period of active literary production extended over a period of 45 years. He has come to be regarded as one of the greatest of the English poets, and he had influenced the course of modern poetry more than any other poets of the 20th century. Yet, opinion concerning the most influential man of letters of the 20th century has not freed itself from a cloud of unknowing. Here, this man, that is the T.S. Eliot, here he was sent at St. Louis Day School, where he studied till 1905. When he went to the Howard University at school, he was considered a brilliant student and in 1900 won a gold medal for Latin language. He began writing at school and showed a marked technical proficiency and sense of humor. In 1897, his father built a holiday resort at Eastern Point near Cape Ann in New England. And here the poet passed his school vacations. It was uh, it was here that the poet became an expert yachtman and consequently sailing image and frequent in his works. Near Eastern Point, there are three rocks known as dry, and a part of the four quarters derives its title from them. Here, in his early life, he went on the European tour. Then he had a marriage uh, in 1915. He started his career as journalist and later on as a poet and a dramatist also. Here, while seeing the works of T.S. Eliot, here we may divide his works in uh, 4 to 5 phases. The first phase maybe we consider started in the year 1905. Eliot began writing quite early in life while still a schoolboy at Smith's Academy, St. Louis. The poems of this period are immature juvenile productions, mere schoolboy exercise, yet showing signs of poetic talent. The poems were published in the various college and school magazines as the Smith Academy Record and the Howard Advocate. Then, later on, in the second phase, we may consider the proof rock and the other observations in 1917. The collection included poems written during the second phase of Eliot's poetic activity, from 1909 to 1917. The poems were written in Boston, in Europe, and during his first year in England, and shows considerable influence of Eliot's reading of French writers, particularly Lafgro. They are sophisticated observations of people, of social behavior, and of the urban landscapes. The poetry is of urban streets, houses, and people, not of woods and fields and flowers. Eliot is frankly satirical of Boston society and love theme. When it appears receives an ironic treatment, the rottenness, the corruption, and descendants of contemporary society is exposed with a rare poignancy. The most important poem of this collection are Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, Portrait of a Lady, the Preludes, the Boston Evening Transcript. Such are his important collection. And in the later on in the third phase, after 1918 to 1925, the most significant poem of this period are Generation, Sweeney Erect, a cooking egg, Sweeney among the nightingales, the wasteland. It was very well known and famous poem published in 1922. Hello Man. The poems are strictly urban in character. They reveal depending on the of the poet's distress at the corruption and the decay of contemporary European civilization. The range and the scope of this poetry is now much enlarged. Up till or until he had dealt with particular people and places, but now he writes a poetry which belongs to what is called major or great poetry. It may be called epic poetry, and the Wasteland is a kind of compressed epic, for it portrays the state of the civilization out of which it grows. This is done in a limited way, but still the Wasteland stands in the epic tradition. The poem reveals a considerable maturity of the poet's power. The characteristic style and the technique of Iliad are now effectively used. The Wasteland specially is a fragmented in effect, lacking in cohesion, that the symbolism or we may say symbolizing the breakdown of beliefs and values in the cultural life of the West. The poems are bleak in tone and have often been regarded as entirely pessimistic. Their gloom in the resultant of the poet's inner gloom consequent upon overwork, ill health, the continued mental illness of his wife, and the harrowing, never shattering impact of the world war on the sensitive temperament. We are also introduced to such a generic character in Iliad's poetry as a Sweeney, Burbank, etc., who are not individual but symbolic figures showing grossness and decay of contemporary society. Thus, Sweeney is animal and unfeeling, who in his younger day might have been a professional but in his old age keeps a pub. This is the third phase of the writing of the T S Eliot. Later on, the fourth phase, which was continued from 1925 to 1935, this is the period of Eliot's Christian poetry. Eliot joined the Anglican Church of England in 1927, and this change in his faith is reflected in the poem of this phase. The poem searches for the right way, a right solution to the human dilemma, and he does so through the traditional material and imagery of Christianity. The tone is rather optimistic. There are indications of the solution which the poet is likely to reach. The more characteristic poem of this Christian period are Ash Wednesday, Journey of the Magi, then Animalia, Marina, such poems that he published in the period that is the fourth phase. And then later on, the last phase in the life of the T S Eliot, this is the period of the four quarters which were published as follows: the Burnt Norian in 1936, the Dry Salvages in 1941, East Coker 1940, Little Gidding in 1942. Such are the poems which he published in the last period or last phase of his writing. This phase is also one like the fourth one, that is the religious, and here the Christian poetries are written or were written by T S Eliot in that period. In both the phase, Eliot is a religious poet as he ever was, but the previous period he used a Christian imagery and tradition, while in the last he examines the eternal problems of men without reference to the Christian tradition. Such are the phases and the writing of the T S Eliot. Later on also he turned toward the prose writing, where he wrote the use of poetry and use of criticism, idea of Christian society, notes towards a definition of culture, selected essay on poetry and poets to criticize the critics. Such is the writing and the early life and the remaining life of the T S Eliot. T S Eliot also worked as an editor of the Criterion from 1922 to 1939. This literary magazine stood for the integrity of European culture. It receives a contribution from all over Europe and all wide variety of subjects, and it contains reflect the Catholic. Eliot himself closed down the magazine when, with the outbreak of war, it became clear that the outbreak of communication with Europe was inevitable. This is in short, the life of the T S Eliot and some of the selected works of the T S Eliot. Later on, we will move towards his critical concepts, and by seeing such short topics, after that we may turn towards our text, the murder in the cathedral. With this, I conclude. Okay, thank you. Good day.